So as we are planning, we have 1 month exactly for the 500th episode of Talking Drupal. So
Right.
I was planning I would get an idea about, as you are the founder, I was hoping to get the inception of the podcast through this meeting. Like how did happen? Like what was the motive behind the podcast and so and so. And I would also who are all the people I should reach out to have a comprehensive view of talking Drupal. So this is more like a discussion, not a question answer session. So I was hoping like we could put out a roadmap for how to deal with this content.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the podcast was founded, let's see, what is it, 13 years ago? I think 2013.
Uh-huh.
And it was a result of um, a friend of mine, Jason Pomental, who's on the first, I don't know, 200 episodes or 100 episodes of the show. He's one of the original members. Him and I would meet at a coffee shop regularly and talk about technology. And he was exploring Drupal, and I was interested in Drupal at the time. And that discussion, those meetings, those times in the coffee shop turned into, us sharing technology, sharing our interest in books, sharing our interest in music, and that kind of thing. And it turned into an idea that I had of starting a book club for tech people. Okay, so we reached out to people that we knew that were colleagues of ours in the tech industry and said, "Hey, we're interested. We're thinking about starting a book club, reading a tech book, and then meeting once a week to talk about it."
Okay.
So that's what we did. So we started a book club that when we would jump on Zoom, or I think it was Google, it might have been Google Meetup at the time, or Skype, could have been even Skype. It's probably Skype. And we would read a chapter of a tech book and discuss it. And there was probably maybe 8 or 9 people on the phone call every week, and we did this for a while. We probably started this in 2012, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few people on those phone calls that were interested in Drupal, that had Drupal
Okay.
experience, some didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversations or the friendships that we created in that book club, um, the people in that book club are the same people who are still on the podcast now. John Picozzi
Mm-hmm.
was in the book club. Nick Laughlin was in the book club. Me and Jason. And at the time, my business partner Jay was there too,
Mm-hmm.
but he lost interest quickly, and I think he was on maybe 2 episodes of the podcast. So I came up with this idea of, we talk about Drupal a lot. Why don't we start talking about Drupal and sharing that conversation with people? Um, and that's what we did. I mean, it was probably me getting some equipment, figuring out how to do it. I had wanted to have a podcast. I did one with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was in
Was
fifth, she was in
so
fifth she was in fifth grade at the time, and I had an interest in podcasting, and I wanted to create one, so I did one with her, and it was about learning about the election system in the United States. And I
okay.
think it I
Okay.
think it was only 8 or 9 episodes. She lost interest pretty quickly. So I had some experience doing the tech side of figuring out how to put a podcast together.
Yeah,
Um,
was that common podcast during that time? Like in 2000, now podcast, like you can see anyone being a podcaster. You have a couch, you have a mic, everyone is a podcaster. But was it that common back in 2013 where
no.
podcast is a thing? So,
It was probably on the upswing back then.
uh-huh.
But it's nowhere like it is today. I mean, it's not even close. Um, I mean, 13 years ago, there were a number of podcasts out there, but not like there is today. People didn't know what a podcast was back then. When you would
Mm-hmm.
say, I have a podcast, people would be not really clear on what you were talking about. And really, Apple was the only company that like had this podcast player on there. devices, and it was the Apple iTunes was the only place that you put podcasts. So it's changed a lot since then. I mean, everyone has a podcast now. So that's kind of how it started. We just if you go to episode 000 and listen to that, you'll see that we were just trying to figure out what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. And then that was it.
Yeah. Okay. So how long did it take for you to make an like itinerary for how talking Drupal should be? Like the first episode had some discussion. Then what? How long did it take the form right it is right now?
The form, it's not drastically different, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, than when it started. Back when we started, we didn't know there was a lot of ground to cover back then. Like we could talk about anything because no one was talking about anything. Um, and some of us were kind of learning Drupal a little bit. I could speak for myself at the time. I had done maybe one or two projects, and it was a great way for me to learn even more by talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
Today, so early on, it was just four people talking.
Mm-hmm.
Was it five at the time? It was four of us. Yeah, it was pretty much four of us talking about topics, things that we knew we were sharing. And
Mm-hmm.
then over time, we realized that, our knowledge ran out pretty quickly and we needed to have other people join. So the show then turned into getting guests.
Okay.
So every show, pretty much 100% of the shows now is guest focused. So it's more of an interview show where we have a guest, one or two come in, and we pick a topic for the show. So if there's a topic, we find a guest, the guest comes in and we dig deep into that topic. And that's the format that we've followed. One of the things that changed back probably around episode 300, and 300 is an important episode, and I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. But um, around 300, maybe I should tell you this first. So prior to episode 300, I
Mm-hmm.
did all of the work for the show. So I hosted the show, I organized the guests, I created the show notes, I did the research. I recorded it. After we recorded, I did all the post-production work and I pushed the show out. So the other hosts of the show basically showed up for the recording and then didn't do anything else. And I burned out of 300 episodes of that.
Okay.
So at episode 300 or around episode 275, I told it was me, Nick, and John at the time. We were the three doing it every week. I told them that I was stepping out, um, that I didn't want to do the weekly show anymore, that I would continue doing stuff in the background. And we prepared for that for about 3 months because they hadn't done any of that prep work for all of those years leading up to
Mm-hmm.
this 300 episodes worth. So I trained them. I basically took about 3 months, and John took over the the show prep work, which would be finding the guests, finding the topics, and scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I handed that off to John. Nick took the post production work. So Nick now was going to do the recording of the show and do all the post production and release it. Um, and then for me, I took on some of the smaller tasks, like I handle the newsletter every week. I do all the graphics, and I assist in kind of creating some of the show content. Like for episode 500, I'm doing all the work for that. So that's how we transitioned. In episode 300 was the last show that I was on as a host. That's also the same time that we transitioned this new idea of having a guest host to fill
Mm-hmm.
my shoes. So it wouldn't just be Nick and John every week. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a concept of a guest host that comes in for a month. So
Mm-hmm.
every month, so every show has three hosts. Two are always Nick and John, and one is a rotating host called a guest host. They come in once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the format that this show has been in since episode 200, since episode 300.
300.
So it's been almost 200 episodes of that format.
Okay. So how did they take it when they when you told them that you're stepping out?
They were shocked. They were they were shocked. They were thinking the show was going to go away. I didn't want it to go away. And when I first told them, I told them I was leaving 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, but I couldn't leave 100%. I couldn't completely step away. So I've for probably about 6 months, I didn't do anything. I
Okay.
just did very, very little work on the show. And then slowly I started to pick up the pace of things that I'd get involved with. And now it's a comfortable pace for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm active with it every week. Um, but it's not. I get to maybe do some more creative things. We've introduced a few things that I've had time to put together. Like last year, we did a mini series
Mm-hmm.
that I completely did. It was about it was I wasn't on the show, but it was a mini series where Mike Anello
Mm-hmm.
did like an online training kind of thing with someone who was with a developer who was going from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. And it was a 7 or 8 episodes, maybe it was 9 episodes. No, I don't remember. But it was helping someone transition from learning old Drupal 7 to learning Drupal 10. And we did that as a mini series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now I'm working on a couple of other special projects that are going to be in addition to the regular podcast,
Mm-hmm.
just some different mini series and things like that.
Okay. So do you miss it being in front of the mic?
No,
No, not at all.
no. Every once in a while, I'll come on as a guest host
Mm-hmm.
or I'll fill in for someone, but absolutely, I don't miss it.
No. But you love podcasting. I thought you loved the speaking part of it.
Um, I like I like the speaking part of it. I really like the idea of the podcast and helping to create the content.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really where more of my interest is, other than being the person that's at the microphone.
Mm-hmm. So, do you still have a say on who is the guest host and what topic you'll be choosing? Or is it like, do you come together a week and discuss on these things? Or is it like
Uh,
John is making the decision?
John makes all those decisions, but if anybody, me, Nick, or anybody wanted to have a specific guest or a specific topic, it's
Mm-hmm.
no problem with John. It's more of,
Okay.
everyone has full-time work and is very
Mm-hmm.
busy.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to keep the show preparation and the show itself to the minimum amount of work as possible. Um, and the format allows us to do that. We don't do a lot of editing.
Mm-hmm.
We've put the show together in a way over time that it basically we record to live, which means what we record is what gets put out. We do some light editing to remove spaces and maybe if there's some content that one of the guests would like us to take out, something they said that they really didn't mean to say, we'll pull that out. But pretty much we've gotten to the point now that when we record it, it's kind of doing some basic editing and getting rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an example of how we just try to keep this. I mean, to do 500 episodes is a lot of work. Um, so we need to keep it in a way that's manageable for us.
Okay. So you
An
only
example,
mentioned,
and
oh,
again, this another small example of that is Nick. The post-production work takes about 6 hours to
okay.
do every week.
Mm-hmm.
One show probably takes about 6 hours to get it out the door. And Nick doing that, I did it for 300 episodes. Nick has now been doing it for almost 200 episodes, and it's getting to be a lot on him.
Mm.
So, what we've decided to do is every quarter or maybe 3 times a year, John and Nick are gonna take 2 days off, 2 weeks off. They're not gonna record a show. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to do any work, and I'm going to take those shows and put something in there. I'll do something
Okay.
on those shows.
Okay.
So
That's
it
lovely.
gives Nick and John a 2 week break once a quarter.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also wanted to ask about when did this module of the week concept start? What was the initial moment?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I'm not sure. I have to go back in time to figure that out. I think it's something that we did very early on the show and then
Mm-hmm.
stopped for a while
Okay.
and then brought it back again. We brought it back. This is one of those things that it's another piece of work to do. Like to do that research every week and figure it out, it gets more work to someone. So we discussed bringing it back, and I recommended that we bring someone in to do it.
Mm.
So that's when we brought Martin on the show. Martin had been just a listener. I didn't even know Martin.
Okay.
Didn't know who he was, but he was very active in communicating with us over Slack. Like when he
Mm.
had comments about the show and stuff, he would be there. And I introduced myself to him one day on Slack and said, "Hey, would you be interested in?" And I realized he worked for Acquia, that he
Mm-hmm.
was really active in the community. He had a few modules, and I approached him and said, "Would you be interested at all in doing this thing called Module of the Week?" And so now he's on the show. If you've listened to any episodes, he comes in for the module of the week and then leaves. So that's
Okay.
his contribution of content every week. So that's probably been going on again since around episode 300, maybe. I
Mm-hmm.
have to look. I'll look that up and I'll get you
Okay.
some of the specifics on module of the week.
Okay. So Jason Payman, I think it's pronounced Pamantal. Jason,
Commental.
yeah, Jason Pamantal was also a beginner. Like when the podcast began, he was a part of it, and I think you mentioned him being around for almost 200 episodes.
I
Uh,
believe, yeah, I'll look that up too, but it's between 100 and 200 episodes. Yeah.
yeah. So why did he step aside?
Yeah, I think for him at the time, he was making some career changes.
Okay.
And I think it runs its course when you do a show for, 200 weeks in a row. It it gets tiring. So I think it just ran its course for him and he just wanted to move on.
Yeah, yeah. He's coming back for the 500th episode.
Yeah, we have him on every once in a while. I think he's
Uh,
been in every 100 he comes on, and he's probably been on a few other times when we want to talk about something. He's a design guy.
okay.
So he'll come on every couple of years with an episode related to design topics. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to ask, how did you come up with the name Talking Book?
Hmm. I don't remember.
Was it like so
Um,
obvious? We are going to talk. It's about Drupal.
it was probably it was probably looking for something that I could get a domain name for, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was kind of a simple one, Talking Drupal. It's a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at the time I emailed Dries and asked if I could get permission to use the Drupal name in the podcast because it's a copyrighted name, and he said
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, so that was it. I don't remember anything other than that. John or Nick may have a different recollection of that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. What about the logo? The drop in the
Jason
pot.
did that.
Yeah.
Jason designed that as a design guy.
He's the design guy.
Yeah, he came up with the logo and basically the colors that we've used ever since.
Yeah. Was it on since the third episode of Talking Drupal logo? Was it the same from the beginning, or did it become a part later?
That's a great question. I think, let me just look here quick. You probably have seen different logos, I'm
Yeah, I
guessing.
think the first two episodes has a different logo.
That was me. Okay, there you go. Okay, so that's me trying to do something there. I'm guessing I just threw something together in Microsoft Paint or something, and then let's see. Yeah, so yes, there you go. You did your research. Episode 3 is when the logo came.
Also, I have one more question. What about the intro music? There's this like some sort of an introduction
Yeah,
music that's coming on, but
yeah.
that has been the same since the first episode. It hasn't changed. I just checked it
Okay,
out. So,
okay. Yeah, I bought I bought that sound from someone selling music online. Bought the rights to it. And that was it.
okay,
Yeah.
not much thought to it.
No, not much thought at all. We wasn't a whole lot of thought into any of this that we put together at the beginning.
Okay. So, like, for something you have not put much thought, decade later, you are reaching up to 500th episode. So, how do you feel about that?
Um, it's kind of amazing to me the amount of dedication that specifically John and Nick have had to keep this going. I burned out and kind of backed off a little bit, but those two guys have hung in there. Now, we weren't doing the same amount of work. One of the things that Nick has said over and over again is he wishes we had divided the work
Okay.
evenly early on because he thinks I would still be on the show, and he could be right.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, he could be right. But yeah, I'm just I'm thankful that these two guys have stuck in. The community has given us great support. Anyone we really ever asked to join the show comes on to share their knowledge. So it's really a service for the community to learn more about Drupal and provide an avenue for people to share their new modules with. Like the module of the week often has something that's new out there. It's a great way for people to learn about it. Um, I'm just sort of humbled about hitting 500, I guess.
That's great. So just wanted to ask, how is the reception like from the Drupal community to Talking Drupal?
Oh, it's really good. It's surprising to me sometimes how few people even know it exists, which is surprises me sometimes. And then there's the other side of it, that wherever you go, when you're ever at a Drupal event, oftentimes you'll be in a group of people and someone will turn around because they hear the voice and
Mm-hmm.
they say, I know that voice, you know. And I've met lots of people at conferences and stuff that way, just by people
Mm-hmm.
hearing the voice and saying, "Oh, I know who you are." Um, Not so much for me anymore, as I haven't been in the last 200 episodes. So anyone coming in to Drupal in the last few years doesn't probably even know who I am, which is interesting. But yeah, the community is so supportive, super supportive of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Dries is a good example of that. Anytime we've asked him, I think he's been on the show maybe 5 or 6 times. Um, let me see. We have a guest page here that lists when everybody's been on. I think he came on like episode 30 or something. And anytime we've reached out to him to ask him for something or support the show in some way, like he's been on each 100 mark he's been on. Um, he just he just says, "Of course, I'll be there." So it's been good, and everyone has always been like that with the show.
Okay. So will there be any particular changes after the 500th episode? Like, are you planning something big? Are there any special projects in plan?
Um, Probably not that I can share. We have a new show that's in the early thinking about process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that we'll be prepared to announce it at the five,
Okay.
but we might. depending, we got a month to figure out if it's going to happen or not.
Okay.
But this show itself will probably remain pretty much the same without many changes.
Mm-hmm.
When we've made changes to the show, we've done them very slowly and thought about them for a while before we've done it. So if there's a change, it wouldn't be anything dramatic anyway. A new
Oh,
show would be only in addition to what we already have.
all right. Okay. Okay. So you've been on for 300 episodes and you've been working in the background for the rest of the episodes. Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite episode? Do you
Do I
have
have
something
what?
that's favorite? Favorite episode? Do you have something that stands out?
Yeah, people always ask that. We've asked ourselves that question too. Do we have a favorite episode? Do we have a favorite memory or anything? And I don't, I think I need to think about that more, but I don't think I have a favorite episode. Um, I have favorite guests, but it wouldn't be fair
Name them.
to name them. But there are probably three people that have been guests that I would have over and over again if I could.
Okay.
Um, I do have some recollection of disasters that we've had. Like we did an episode with Jeff Geerling once. Do you know who Jeff Geerling is?
I'm not very
Okay.
familiar.
Yeah, so he's a well-known OG kind of Drupal guy.
Okay.
And he's kind of moved a little bit away from the Drupal community, and he's a very successful YouTube channel now based on Raspberry Pis. So he's a tech guy, and we recorded. I think it's the only time we lo completely lost the recording. We did a full hour and a half with him, and completely, I deleted it by accident, the recording, and we had to call him and ask him to do it again, and he graciously did.
Oh,
Those are some of the things that happen that you can't avoid. Now we have a much better backup strategy, and we actually record and stream in two places. So in case there's a disaster, we can find it. But things like that are in my memory.
I see. All right. That's interesting. He deleting an entire episode by mistake. I'll
Yeah,
panic.
yeah.
Okay. So I think I've almost summed up everything I wanted to ask.